It's a century since we made this really fateful decision to take addicts and punish them and make them suffer because we believed that would deter them, it would give them an incentive to stop.
With over 7,000 chemicals released each time you light a cigarette, it's no surprise that smoking is one of the leading causes of preventable deaths worldwide. But with 1.3 billion people actively smoking, what actually happens when you stop smoking? Within the first 20 minutes of quitting, your blood pressure and heart rate return to normal. This is because the nicotine in cigarettes released epinephrine and norepinephrine, which increased your heart rate and narrowed blood vessels. These effects also cause smokers' extremities to feel colder, but by now your hands and feet have returned to their normal temperature. 2 hours in, and the nicotine cravings begin, causing moodiness, drowsiness, tense feelings, and even difficulty sleeping. Because nicotine also releases more dopamine than normal, these are expected physiological responses to the decrease in its release. 8 hours after quitting, and the inhaled carbon monoxide clears, allowing oxygen levels in the bloodstream to return to normal. Carbon monoxide and oxygen compete to bind to hemoglobin in your blood, which stresses the circulatory system, so as it clears, there's more room for oxygen. However, for long-term smokers, this carbon monoxide exposure causes red blood cells to increase in size, making the blood thicker and causing higher blood pressure and increased chances of developing blood clots. Surprisingly, 24 hours after quitting, coughing will actually increase, which is your body's way of clearing out all the toxins from the lungs. Additionally, at this point, the risk of developing various coronary artery diseases decreases, all within 24 hours.
We live in a culture where people feel really increasingly vulnerable to all sorts of addictions, whether it's to their smartphones or to shopping or to eating. Before these talks began, you guys know this, that we were told we weren't allowed to have our smartphones on. And I have to say, a lot of you looked an awful lot like addicts who were being told their dealer was going to be unavailable for the next couple of hours.
You used to do LSD with Steve Jobs. Can you take me back to those college days? I mean, let's just rewind and go back there.
Let's see, were we playing Sgt. Pepper?
Well, yeah, what were you playing? How did this go down?
It was pretty prosaic. We were in Portland at Reed College. Freshman college year is a very poignant time of life where you're very much trying to figure out what the world is about and what you're interested in.
How did you guys meet?
Oh, well, at Reed was a pastoral environment, and so there was a lot of hanging out going on. But Steve and I developed a friendship when we figured out that we had both read this amazing book called Be Here Now, which is about psychedelics and spirituality. Steve was my best friend at the time of life when I was discovering all this huge current of Eastern literature. All of a sudden, psychedelics were being introduced into the mix of traditional spirituality, and that was just very fascinating.
Do you remember the first time you guys took psychedelics together?
No, not really. We were just kind of walking around. I think we used to go for hikes. I think we camped out on the beach. I can't really remember building a campfire. I don't remember what we did when it got dark. I can tell you that the times that I was taking psychedelics with Steve, we weren't really talking that much. We were more of in a meditative space.
The story goes that everyone's in the garage working on the first prototypes.
When I heard that he was starting this Apple project, that was a big surprise to me, and I volunteered to help, not having any qualifications whatsoever, but I was happy to help. Most of what I was doing was testing these boards and, hooking them up and testing. I had to plug all the chips in and then test them. And Steve was on the phone in the kitchen most of the time. So I was alone in the garage. Did I even have a radio? No, I didn't even think I had a radio.
Once you were there, did you and Steve Jobs ever take LSD or continue to take psychedelics?
Once Apple started, Steve was really focused with all of his energy on making Apple successful. And he didn't need psychedelics for that.
There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is.
Alcohol is a drug. It's been grandfathered in.
Well, it's not just a drug. It's a drug that gets a bad rap. Because if you just have a little, it's great.
Fine.
Yeah, a little sip here and there, and your inhibitions are relaxed, and it shows your true self, and hopefully you're more joyous and friendly and happy, and everything's good.
Almost everything we think we know about addiction is wrong. And if we start to absorb the new evidence about addiction, I think we're going to have to change a lot more than our drug policies. And a lot of us feel like that. And it might sound weird to say, oh, I've been talking about how disconnection is a major driver of addiction. It might be weird to say it's growing because you think, well, we're the most connected society there's ever been, surely. But I increasingly began to think that the connections we think we have, are like a kind of parody of human connection. If you have a crisis in your life, you'll notice something. It won't be your Twitter followers who come to sit with you. It won't be your Facebook friends who help you turn it round. It'll be your flesh and blood friends who you have deep and nuanced and textured face-to-face relationships with. We talk all the time in addiction about individual recovery, and it's right to talk about that. But we need to talk much more about social recovery. Something's gone wrong with us, not just as individuals, but as a group. And we've created a society where, for a lot of us, life looks a whole lot more like that isolated cage and a whole lot less like Rat Park. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Thank you.